Hello and welcome to engagementringsinfo.org. Today I want to give you a little basic information which will help you get a significantly better diamond engagement ring for the same money in just a few minutes. Now recently I had the experience of a diamond broker telling me that he'd studying how diamonds are cut for the last 20 years and was just beginning to understand it. Now my feeling is that if he's telling the truth, then maybe he should take up an occupation that he's better at. But joking aside, buying diamonds is a complex subject, but the chances are that unless you're going to spend an extremely large sum of money, then going to a knowledgeable diamond dealer is going to cost you far more than it's going to save you. So let's give you some basic information so that you can get yourself a pretty good deal and get something that looks a little bit like this for not too much money. I suspect the size might be a little bit smaller, but in terms of the appearance, you should be able to get something a little bit like this. So, how are we going to go about it? Well, first of all, if you want to get the best possible diamond at the best possible price, then you need to understand a little bit about diamond certificates. Now, here we are. What's the most reputable certification systems in the United States and around the world? And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of them here. And if you want to check out all these certificates, there's a link at the bottom of the video. But for our purposes, you'll find that almost all good diamonds will have a GIA, a Gemological Institute of America certificate. So let's take a little walk around this, and I think you'll find if you understand this certificate, you'll be able to transfer the knowledge to all the other ones. So the first thing they've got here is shape and cutting style. In this instance, a round brilliant, which is the standard shaped stone that we recognise so well. About 76% of all the diamonds that are sold are this shape, but there are lots of other shapes, and here's a view of the main ones. Main thing to remember about shape is that it's not the cut, it's not the particular appearance of the diamond beyond the actual outline shape of the thing, and as you can see, the very different shapes here. So that is shape. Now the measurements here, the only thing that you might find confusing about this is you've got two measurements here and then the third one. Now the first pair of measurements are showing the difference in diameter, so that the smallest diameter at any part of the ring would be, of the diamond I beg your pardon, would be 8.26 millimeters and the largest would be 8.30. And then the second one is simply the depth from the top flat surface of the diamond, which is the table, right down to the very point at the bottom, which is called the cullet. And with this first one, the only thing to remember is if the two numbers are significantly different, the stone is not actually going to look round, and this can also affect the refractivity, the brilliance you get from the stone. So you don't want these two numbers to be too far apart. So okay, and the other thing it's just worth remembering about measurements, particularly if you're buying online, is that retailers just love showing you a diamond larger than life. So just taking a look at those actual measurements will make sure that you're comparing like with like if you're looking at different stones, but also ensure that you're not going to be disappointed when your stone arrives if you have bought it online. So the next item here is carat weight. This is a nice large stone, 2.13 carats. Just important to know, the carat weight is the physical weight of the stone, and a carat is equal to 0.2 grams or 200 milligrams. Diamonds of the same weight can look very different sizes, and it's just important to be aware, because sometimes you will be offered a stone that's cut to look larger than it is by having a wide top surface, a wide table, that this is always going to result in less sparkle or fire. So if you decide to do that, just make sure you're aware that there is a trade-off there. And also in terms of carat weight, it's also important to know, if you're trying to stretch your budget, that a ring with several smaller diamonds in it is always going to be cheaper than a single stone that adds up to the same carat weight. So the next item is colour grade. Now if we have a quick look here, this is the colour grading system. So you go from what is called a colourless diamond, that starts with a D right the way through to this very clearly yellow stone in the Y or Z range. Now, as you'll notice, it's pretty hard to tell the difference between the D here and the K here. Now, in fact, that difference becomes even harder to tell when a stone's in a setting, but it can make a big difference in price. So here we're looking at a 0.7 carat stone, and even here the difference between your D colour is well over $1,000, going down to an 8I, I beg your pardon. And if you look at a rather larger stone, at a full carat, you can see that you've got a $20,000 price tag here, and if you go down to the I or the K, you're talking about $14,000 less. So do be aware that if you're deciding to pay for that colour, just remember you are paying a lot, and that it will be, to all intents and purposes, probably pretty much impossible to tell. So some other colour tips. And some people actually prefer a less white diamond, as it can give a softer, gentler look. Sometimes white can be quite harsh, and especially if it's combined with a yellow gold setting, which is quite fashionable currently. You know, that can give quite a nice soft look. Also, a diamond will tend to look quite slightly whiter against a darker skin tone. So if your skin tone is black or olive, then you can get away with a lower grading in the colour terms. Also, a stone with more colour may be more apparent against very white skin. If you use a white gold or a platinum setting, that will enhance the clarity of a very white stone. And in contrast, a yellow gold setting may mask the degree of yellow in a yellow diamond in the M to Z range, but it can give a slightly yellowish tint to a very colourless diamond. So these are all things that are worth thinking about in terms of colour. So if we go back to our certificate for a moment, the next item is clarity. Now, clarity again is something that makes a very, very big difference to the price. And the important thing to remember with clarity is that it's assessed on the certificate using a 10 times magnification. So when someone says a diamond's internally flawless, or the certificate says that, it means that they've magnified it 10 times and they still can't see anything. Anything that can't be seen at 10 times magnification is considered not to be there. But obviously that's not how you're going to be viewing your ring. And as it said, this is what diamonds should look like to the naked eye. So right down to an SI1, which is a slight inclusion 1 or 2, you won't see any difference. So again, be aware, if you are getting above an SI1 or SI2, you are paying for something that will not be visible to the naked eye. And some dealers actually dissuade people from buying anything between an IF and a VV, a very, very slightly included 2 diamond, if it's going to be worn, as a natural wear can reduce the clarity to a VS or even an S1 grade. So keep that in mind again when you're deciding how much money you want to spend and in what way you want to spend it. So the next item we're going to is cut grade. Now, it's a little known fact that the most common reason for a woman being unhappy with an engagement ring is not its size but its sparkle, and by far the most important factor in creating that sparkle is the cut. The cut grade evaluates the combined effect of facet shapes and angles, girdle width, culet side, polish and symmetry on the overall appearance of a diamond. And that's a complex evaluation, and it's not a perfect art, and some people will like things slightly differently. You know, they might like a slightly narrower table or different angles or so on in terms of the way that stone reflects light, but it is a wonderful place to start and a great way for comparing different stones. So when buying, do get the best quality that you can in terms of cut, and be aware that unlike the other factors where we're saying, you know, one step doesn't make a difference or things are not visible, a single step down the scale of cut has a disproportionately large impact on the amount of brilliance, the overall light reflected, the dispersion, the spectrum of colours that you get flashing back, and the scintillation, the flashing and sparkling when the diamond's moved. It does make a real difference, so do spend your money to get the very best you can. Almost all people are in total agreement that the diamond cut has the largest overall influence on the beauty of the diamond. So that brings us down to the additional grading information, and you've got some more information down here. Now this is of slightly less importance, or more in-depth information of what's already above, so it doesn't need to be worried about quite so much. But I would suggest with polish and symmetry, if you've got an excellent cut grade, try and match the polish and symmetry standards to the cut grade that you've chosen. And with regard to fluorescence, as a general rule, it shouldn't really affect the price of the stone you're buying. Obviously take a look at it, and if you're unsure, find a diamond with no fluorescence. But sometimes it can slightly improve a stone, sometimes make it slightly worse, but as a general rule, not a big effect, so don't worry about that too much. So I hope that has been useful in enabling you to read a certificate and to get the most important factors to get the very best ring you can for the very best price. So I'm from engagementringsinfo.org. Please do visit us again, and thank you very much.